Hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. And this lecture is all about penetration testing in AWS. And I'm going to show you a website which you can use to find the most up-to-date information on penetration testing, because this can change from time to time as AWS update their policy on penetration and security testing. So if you come to aws.amazon.com/security/penetration-testing. So here is the website, and they have recently changed their policy around penetration testing. And I don't know if you remember or you already know that it used to be that you needed to explicitly request permission in order to conduct penetration testing and vulnerability scans. And previously, you needed to complete a form and request authorization in order to do any penetration testing. However, they have changed it now, so effective immediately, AWS customers are now welcome to carry out security assessments or penetration testing against their own AWS infrastructure without prior approval, and that covers for 8 services at the moment. But it may well be that they're going to update this list and add more services. So the permitted services are shown down here, and it includes your EC2 instances, NAT gateways, Elastic Load Balancers, RDS databases, CloudFront, Aurora databases, API gateways, Lambda and Lambda Edge, Lightsail, and Elastic Beanstalk. So you no longer need to request authorization to perform penetration testing on these services, but you do still need to complete a non-disclosure agreement. So they ask you to contact pen-test-nda@amazon.com in order to complete the NDA agreement. And there are still some prohibited activities. So the following activities are prohibited at this time. So DNS zone walking using Amazon Route 53 and hosted zones, any kind of simulation of a denial of service attack, port flooding, protocol flooding, and request flooding as well. So you definitely cannot perform any of those activities at this time. But as I said, this may well change. And as you know, within AWS, things are changing all the time. So they may well update this list of permitted services, and they may well update the list of prohibited activities as well. Scrolling down, they have a few tips for security testing, and they recommend excluding the following EC2 instance types from your security assessments to minimize potential disruption to your environment. So they don't advise testing to these really small instance types. And they also advise that you verify that you're testing the correct IP address. IP addresses are allocated and released constantly, so do make sure that you are testing your own IP address before you begin your penetration testing. So moving on down the page, you do still need to request authorization for any of these other simulated events. So anything like security game days, support game days, war game simulations, white cards, red team and blue team testing, disaster recovery simulations, and other simulated events. You do need to request authorization for those. You just need to email them directly using this email address, provide all the information that they're requesting, and you should expect to get authorization from AWS within a few days. So definitely do come to this page. It may well change from time to time, and it's definitely worth checking before you plan to do any kind of security testing within your AWS environment. And if you're looking for any pen testing tools, there are loads to choose from on the AWS Marketplace. So if you just come to Services, EC2, go to Launch Instance, and then click on AWS Marketplace. And you can use this search box to search for penetration testing tools. So I'm just going to type penetration testing and hit enter. And then the first one in the list is Kali Linux. And if you haven't heard of Kali Linux before, it is one of the most popular and commonly used penetration testing tools by security architects and security test teams. And this is really the default gold standard for penetration testing. But there are a few other tools on here as well, so you can scroll down and check those out too. And the reason why Kali Linux is so popular is because it has loads of really cool tools built in. So it's basically an ethical hacking tool, and it's really, really fun to play around with. You can use it to do loads of really fun things like scan ports, crack passwords, sniff network packets, etc. So it's something that you really only want to be doing in your own environment, just to test if there are any vulnerabilities in your own environment. And there are loads and loads of different YouTube videos available if you do want to play around with Kali Linux and have a go at penetration testing your own environment. So that is everything that I wanted to tell you about penetration testing. And do bear in mind that although you don't need to ask permission anymore, for quite a few services now, you don't need to ask permission anymore. It did used to be the case that you had to ask permission before doing any kind of security testing within AWS. So do come back to this page because it may well change from time to time. And it's definitely worth checking before you plan to do any kind of penetration testing in your AWS environment. So that is the end of this lecture. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.